Good evening. My name is Amy Kochek with Amy Kochek Creative, and you are tuned into another episode of Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. This is kind of a unique recording because normally I see you guys in the morning around 10 a.m., but now it's a little bit different, and I'm super excited. I always start by just kind of telling you why are we here and why are we doing what we do. So, I own a business, Amy Kochek Creative, and I'm a coach, I'm a ghostwriter, I'm an editor. I am all things story related because I believe that the most powerful asset that you have is your story. And what I found through talking to clients or in conversation with people is that there's so many people all over the world that have these really phenomenal stories, but sometimes they're waiting to share them, or they're not sharing them, or they're hiding their story in shame because they feel guilt behind it. So what I decided to do was to use my platform to highlight other people's stories that I think are just absolutely extraordinary, and with great reviews, because it's so interesting that a lot of times when we are suffering in our own lives, it's because we believe we're all alone, that we're the only ones, that nobody else has gone through this, and we are alone. And what I'm discovering through these stories and through other people reaching out to me is that you're not alone, that there's so many people in the world that are overcoming, that are experiencing hardships and difficulties, but they're doing it, they're making it through, and they're making a difference with it. And the major thing that you can do in the midst of your struggle is share your story, because it's so empowering. So that's why I do what I do, and we do it 2 times a week. And I'm just so excited about the people that I've met along the way and that I've been able to showcase. And no interview that I have done has been a disappointment. Every interview I've come away, if this is for nobody else but me, I've come away learning and being better because of it. So today I know is going to be no different because I just have such a phenomenal human being on. His name is Stacey Jenkins. And I have had the opportunity to hear a good chunk of Stacey's story, and he has so much value to add. And I'm really excited about what he's going to share with us today. So, Stacey, I'm going to throw the ball to you, and I want you to just introduce us, tell us who you are, what you do, any relevant information you want to share.
Okay. Well, thank you, Amy, for allowing me this opportunity, first of all. Second, as Amy said, my name is Stacey Jenkins. I reside in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I have over 24 years of law enforcement experience, both federal and local. Also have 6 years experience as a professor, adjunct professor. My law enforcement experience extends from being a homicide detective in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I also conduct and still conduct behavioral profiling. What we now call the politically correct versions was criminal profiling. Now it's behavioral profiling. I was a gang unit specialist, hostage negotiator, crisis negotiator, a CIT, crisis intervention team, and we'll talk about that later and what it entails and how its impact affected me on June 17, 2014, or June 14, 2017. I had 5 years as a special agent with the federal law enforcement agency, particularly Department of Homeland Security, was where I did the meat of my work. My teaching experience extends from I teach business psychology, profiling social media accounts, psychology of social media, criminal profiling, computer psychology, and psychology meaning in group dynamics. I have a bachelor's degree in criminology, a bachelor's degree in psychology, both from Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. Go Cardinals. My master's degree in forensic psychology and at Walden University, and I'm currently a PhD candidate working on my my PhD in forensic psychology. And I'm an international speaker. So I felt embarrassed saying that, but I looked at the map and looked at my calendar, past and present. I am an international speaker. So
that's awesome.
Yes.
The federal student loans must love you.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah. But that's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome, all your experience. And a fellow Indiana resident. I used to live in Indiana, born and raised, so I'm sure the weather's already turning and the cold is already turning. Yeah.
Yes. I'm a winter person myself. I like winter fashion, so I can't wait for the winter to arrive.
Yeah. So as with every episode, the thing that we focus on is the one pivotal moment in your life. So what I want you to do is give us a quick setup, who you were, what was going on beforehand, and then take us to that pivotal moment.
Okay. Well, life was good. I did my wife at the time and I just built a house. We just got back from actually life was just good, both spiritually, physically, financially, and emotionally. Life was just good. But things took its toll on June 14th, 2017. It was about 3-something in the morning. I was found unresponsive in my unmarked Fort Wayne Police Department vehicle. The uniform officer, which arrived to the scene, knocked on the window and asked me. Well, there's several of us in law enforcement, so he said, "Hey, Jinx," hence the shortened version of Jenkins. "Hey, Jinx, are you okay?" And I said I didn't respond, and he asked what was I doing out this late at night, and I told him I was heading to Krieger Park. And when he asked what for, I responded, "I'm heading to kill myself." And at that time, I was then asked to exit the vehicle. What happened was I had suffered a back injury. It was so bad I left literally in tears, crying from work after squad meeting, and I took the day off. I took a personal day, and my wife drove me to my doctor's, and I was literally in so much pain. I had tears coming out of my eyes. I've never felt that much pain before in my life in regards to an injury. My doctor gave me 3 shots to my back of a pain reliever to reduce the pain. Also gave me some prescription painkillers and muscle relaxers. Now, the muscle relaxer, unbeknownst to myself or my doctor at the time, is called minoxidil. And in rare cases, it's known to cause bipolar effects in individuals. Speaking of individuals and the stress at that time, I was unaware of the stress that I was carrying. I had found out that my daughter was involved in a vehicle pursuit, and police department arrested her, but they didn't want to arrest her. And me being the jerk at the time that I didn't want her. When she threw my name up as Detective Jenkins as my daddy, I said, "Take her to jail." You know, I was like, "Take her to jail, man." And I'll never forget, I was in hostage negotiation training, and my former teammates in the gang unit who apprehended her called me and was begging me to come get her, and I refused to come get her. I was so upset and so mad. And that had happened the night before. Then I found out she was a victim of a sexual assault, and she was also a victim of an assault prior to that. And here I am laying in bed trying to recover from this backache, and I just wake up thinking I'm the worst person in the world. You know, I'm the worst husband, worst father. I just had all this self-pity and just thinking that, you know, I don't deserve to live. I don't want to live. And for some reason, I don't know what it is. And to this day, I still picture myself getting in my personal vehicle, not my squad car. I loaded up my .357 Magnum, my personal weapon, and I'm heading off to go blow my head off. I didn't want to kill myself at home because we just built the house, and I didn't want my wife to see my body. So I'm driving off to Krieger Park, and that's when by the grace of God, my car rolled on the curb and I passed out. because I had taken all those bottles of pills, of the monoxynals and the painkillers to end my life. And I also consumed a half a glass of vodka to accelerate my death, because, you know, it says on those bottles, do not consume with alcohol. So I'm thinking, hey, this is going to make me want to kill myself. Even this is going to make my death, you know, come quicker. So by the grace of God, I passed out. And the only thing I have to say about that night, I should have never been behind that car. I stood tall on my disciplinary actions within the city of Fort Wayne and on the criminal procedures. I never once asked for leniency. I never once said, hey, in 24 years, I've never been in trouble. I've never had a suspension in my life. Give me a break. Matter of fact, I asked to stay in jail. I said, you know, I want to be an example. You know, let my mistake be an example, but instead I was advised not to, and I'm glad I didn't, because I don't know if I could take 30 days in jail. Yeah. But the thing was, I was grateful that no one got hurt. You know, that I didn't run into a pedestrian or a motorist, or any lives weren't taken. And I thank God every day for that didn't happen. But other than that, that's where the outside the mind comes in. Also the corruption behind the blue wall, because it has well, I think I'm going ahead of myself, so I'll just wait.
Let me pause that real quick. Okay. How quickly did you notice a major behavior change between when you started taking these the painkillers that were said to have the side effects of bipolar disorder? How quickly did that turnaround happen when you started taking it to when you started feeling these intense symptoms of bipolar disorder?
It was from the time that I consumed the first pill, the first muscle relaxer. When I took the first muscle relaxer and the first prescribed painkiller, I was knocked out. I went to sleep. Then I woke up. So it was within a matter of 8 hours probably. But during those 8 hours, I was dead. I was knocked out. I was dead to the world. But when I woke up, then I suddenly woke up just thinking, wow, I don't want to live anymore. Yeah.
Wow. So you're in your unmarked police car, you're found, they asked you to get out of the vehicle. What's the results of them finding you in the state that they found you? What happens next?
What happened was I was then booked, and I was arrested for operating under the influence. I remember completely telling them that at the scene that, hey, I don't want to live. I want to die. Let me go. Let me just go kill myself. Let me go. And I remember in hindsight thinking about it, and to your viewers, if you had a loved one or you had a child, a family member, a coworker, and they lifted up their shirt in front of all these first responders, and you saw bandages, 3, 4 bandages on this person's body, and this person just said that they consumed several pills and they wanted to end their life, you canceled the ambulance that was arriving to the scene, and the ambulance was disregarded. I know if I would have done that, I would have had 30, 60 days without pay for putting someone's life in jeopardy, because the last thing you want to happen is to transport that individual to lockup and have them overdose in your car because you refuse the medical treatment. And that's where the paranoia start kicking in. That's where I'm thinking, wow, they're doing this to me. I was that boy. I was their boy for 24 years. I wasn't, that malcontent. I never said anything against them. And that's what made me start to see a lot of things differently. And I waited 2 years to write this book. Like I said, this happened 2 years. This happened 2 years ago. And if I would have wrote it a year ago, I would have been looked at as the angry black man, and rightfully so, because I was angry. And I think now I'm at peace with myself. I'm at peace with God. I'm at peace with a lot of things, and that's what gave me the motivation to want to write this book, because I'm writing it from all angles, and I'm not crying and saying why me, or I'm the victim and look what they did to me. That no longer exists. And
So let's get to they book you. How many days were you in jail?
You know what? It seemed like a lifetime. It's so it's not. It's funny now because I have my free. I have my freed. I can't say so I just say freed. So I have my freed, and I look back and it seemed like a lifetime. But being an academic, being a scholar and an individual who is pursuing his degree in forensic psychology, his PhD, I know that the worst thing to do to an individual who's suffering from a psychosis is to put that individual in solitary confinement. So it seemed like a lifetime. Although it was about 12, maybe 13 hours, it seemed like an eternity. You know, I was
when they brought you to the jail, they immediately put you in solitary confinement. Why? Mm-hmm. Why there?
Because one, I'm assuming because I was law enforcement, and two, because I had made threats to kill myself.
Yeah.
So yes.
So after the 13 hours that they have you in solitary confinement, where do they transition you to after that?
After that, and that's where the wow syndrome comes from. And to your viewers, have you? I'd like to say, you know, Amy, I tried so hard. I tried so hard to give them the benefit of the doubt, saying to myself every day, waking up, okay, maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they didn't intend to do this. Maybe it was just an honest mistake. But, you know, I look back on it, and the only thing I can see is just, and I'm putting copies of the police reports in my book, photocopies of it, because there's always two sides to the story. And you look at it and you're saying, wow, how could this happen? But to answer your question, what happened after that, I'll never forget. This lady walks in, and I remember because I've trained with her in hostage negotiation and crisis management, and I remember her, and she's giving me a psychological field assessment, asking me questions about myself and asking me if I still want to kill myself, or, you know, about the pills and this and that. And next thing you know, she comes back and she says, well, Judge Avery just signed your 72-hour commitment paper, and you'll be going to Parkview Behavioral Health for a 72-hour psychiatric evaluation / detention, court ordered. And I said to her, and I, you know, at that time, hey, I wanted help. I was pleading for help. Matter of fact, I go, and I forgot to mention that, you know, I even put a letter, a suicide note, apologizing in my library in my house, and I shoved it in the book. It was abnormal behavior book, and it was that was my apology and farewell to my wife and my family and friends, but. They wanted me to go to Parkview Behavioral Hospital or Health to get help, and I've been speaking for since 2014, but I've been speaking professionally since last year. And I remember in my lectures and my speeches, I talk about mental health and the psychiatric community in Fort Wayne, and I literally would come out and say it was a joke, and I would literally come out and say I would like to see at least 1,000 feel-good letters that, you know, came out of PBH from the what they're called as consumers, people that need help for psychiatric treatment. They're called mental health consumers. And I said, I don't even think we would get 1,000 feel-good letters or success stories. That's how outdated and antiquated the organization is. And in my book, it goes deeper into what happened to me at PBH and my experience at PBH.
So when they send you to the mandatory psychiatric ward, mm-hmm. What would you say you noticed were the deficiencies? And this kind of can just speak to the mental health industry in general. What did you see as the deficiencies of this institution that you experienced and that other people are obviously experiencing as well?
Well, the sad thing is it's like cattle herding. And the sad thing is, say, for instance, you meet a therapist, and I'm not going to say you meet a good therapist at PBH. I'm just going to say you meet a good therapist, and you're committed for a psych evaluation, and you build a bond with this therapist, and you build a connection, and rapport is building, and there's trust, and then you're there, and and then all of a sudden they release you, they give you your walking papers and tell you got to go. Is because your insurance only allows you to stay 4 days or to stay 3 days, and you're only allowed to stay you're only allowed to use this maybe 4 days a year or 4 days every 90 days. You know, it's so restrictive, and that's why that's the bad thing about it, because you come across therapists or individuals that you don't really have a rapport with, and that was my knock against the psychiatric community. They, too many times, I'm not saying about you or your viewers, but too many times you go and you want to speak to somebody, and they give you the feeling like, okay, time's up, or they interrupt you, or they look at their watch, and that just leaves a person feeling worse, and that depreciates the value of rapport.
So what happens, because obviously you're at one of your lowest moments when you're found by the police, and then you go into the psych ward. What happens? What happens there? Like, are you feeling lower? Are you still suicidal? Wow. What's happening?
Man, you know what? There's some. I'm there, and I'm not talking. I refuse to leave, because I remember one nurse. It was so bad. She came up to me, and like I said, I've noted and I've expressed my dissatisfaction with Parkview Behavioral Health in the past, in both publicly and in my literatures when it comes to my peer review journals for academia. And I expressed them based on my experience with my daughter's experience with PBH. And I'll never forget, this nurse said, "So we're a joke, are we?" And this was the first word she said when the Allen County Police Department transferred custody from the jail to PBH. When I'm in the building, I'm checked in my room, I put on my gown, and I sit down, and before she takes my vitals, blood pressure, temperature, everything like that, the words came out of her mouth as, "So you think we are a joke?" And my mouth is just like, wow, it's just wide open. But and I have to say this. I don't want to. I do have to say this, because it hasn't stopped me for saying, voicing my opinion before about the psychiatric community in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But it's to the point where I stayed there. I ended up staying there for 5 days. It wasn't 3 days. It was 5 days, because I was there on a Wednesday, and it overlapped. I was not allowed to see my family. Matter of fact, my family didn't even know I was arrested. My wife didn't even know I was arrested. No one knew I was at PBH. And here's an individual who has several members in his family who is in law enforcement, who have broken bread with these individuals, who I've shared stories with, who we assisted. Basically, they know me in and out, and they know my family, they know my wife. No one bothered to pick up the phone and call my wife or my family and say, "Hey, Stacy was arrested. He's okay, but we want to get him some help, and we're going to take him to a hospital to get help." Nobody. I wasn't allowed to see visitors or anything. And I firmly believe that the treatment that was delivered, and I'm hoping that it will never happen again to anyone, but the treatment that I received on those 2 days in June 2017, I believe that it did more harm than good to my mental health and my mental well-being. So, but were
you given meds? Were they prescribing you more meds?
Yes, the meds. It was so bad there that I didn't get to speak to anybody. I'll never forget. And I even gave them names to try to make. I tried to put myself into a different objectivity and a different stratosphere, and that's why I call my book "Outside the Mind," because inside I was suffering. There was mental illness. There was no question about it. But outside, just like on television, you see the little devil and the angel, but outside was the sane Stacy, the same individual trying to come in, but he was outside looking in, trying to fight to get in. And these individuals, there was one guy, he had a long scraggly beard, looked like a hippie, a Mel White, skinny. All he would do is talk about old television shows and rerun shows. There was a skinny female white with stringy blonde hair, and she would scratch her elbows all the time. And then they had a younger male black African American in there who was in his early 20s, and I'll never forget, he had these large, look like hand-me-down Nikes, Air Force Ones, and he would walk around in circles reciting basketball statistics. That's all he would do. I didn't know their names. I didn't want to strike a conversation, so I gave them characters, and so I called him Basketball Jones. That was his name for 5 days, Basketball Jones. The other guy was Broke AZZ Willie Nelson, and the other lady, I didn't have a name for her, but it explains it in my book. There was an incident that happened, unfortunately, in the showers, and I gave her name, and that's in the book. Yeah. But yeah, I was literally doped up because I didn't get counseling. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't get a chance to talk to a therapist. Only I talked to someone my last day there. So at the point to try to get away from this, I every morning when I woke up, I asked them to give me a shot to go to sleep, and I did, and I slept the whole time. I was so doped up when I left there because I kept asking them to give me a shot. On the fourth day, they realized they were giving me shots, and I was manipulating the system. I was waiting till shift change to ask for another dose of the shot to make me go to sleep. They started giving me pills, and I started taking the pills and just to go to sleep so I wouldn't have to be there.
Yeah. So once you get out and now you're kind of left to your own devices, how does your condition start to improve? Does it? And then, I mean, obviously it does, since you're sitting next to us right now in your right mind.
Yeah.
How does the improvement start? How do you start countering this?
Well, basically, I had court ordered for, was given a court order therapy. I was then ordered to see a psychiatrist, and then I also sought treatment outside for my help. The therapist I was given medication. I was put on medication, and again, where it does more harm than good. And I put in my book, there's 90%. Or 70%, I'm sorry, of the population that suffers from mental illness, they don't need medication. They just need a good therapist, someone to talk to. It's that 30%, the ones that suffer from schizophrenia or other severe depression. Those are the ones that need the medication. But the other individuals, we should have good counselors, good listeners. And Dr. John Neubauer of Fort Wayne, Indiana, I love that man. And man, he saved my life. We did something similar to hypnosis, and actually that's what helped me. I was on medication. The medication would make me, it was antidepressant medication. It would make me twitch. It would make my teeth grind. And I gained 70 pounds. And that was, and it didn't do any good. It didn't take anything back. It didn't make me feel better about myself. The only thing that made me feel better about myself was the therapy and that I had. And matter of fact, the medicine that I was given by PBH is so funny. When I was released from PBH, and I knew how to play the system because being a crisis intervention officer, and they have them worldwide and nationwide. And these are sworn street officers that are trained to conduct psychological field assessments to determine if a person is in danger of him or herself or others. And these individuals are trained by licensed clinicians, and they go through rigorous training, and they're able to take custody of that individual and commit them for a 24-hour psychiatric hold. And it shocked me when I was released from PBH. My wife came and picked me up, and the only thing that the nurse practitioner said at the time was that she was rearranging my blood pressure medicine because it was causing my legs to swell. So we're like, okay. And I noticed in order to get out of PBH by being a crisis intervention officer myself, the key words were when they ask you, do you feel like harming yourself? You say no. And I did. I still felt like harming myself because I was so doped up, but I wanted to get out of there. So I lied and they released me. And that's how that shows the cracks in the system and how you manipulate it. And I had several students when I was a school resource officer would come and knock on my office door saying, Officer Jenkins, I feel like harming myself today. And those are the key words. And by law, we have to take them. And this happens nationwide through the crisis intervention team protocol. And they want to get because for kids who are living in a bad situation, who are living in a bad environment or in poverty, going to PBH is fun because you play games in the kids section. You play games, you get paid attention to. There's activity, there's arts and crafts. It's fun. It's like a little camp. But for me, it was torture. It was bad. But when I got home. And I'm sorry, Amy, but I have to explain this. But when I got home, we got our medicine, and I don't know about you, but I went to our pharmacist, and this is the same pharmacist I've been going to for years. When they ask you the question, do you need us to explain anything? We say no, because I know I'm getting prescribed new blood pressure medication. Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm home. It was 4 days. I hadn't taken a shower, hadn't brushed my teeth, haven't shaved, and I'm under my pool table in my man cave with a blanket, and I'm just constantly crying. Long story short, it's in my book. My buddy, I changed his name to Jerry Combs. Jerry Combs comes in, and he does a off-the-book hostage rescue, off-the-book hostage negotiation at my house. When I say off the book, the dispatch doesn't know, the SWAT team doesn't know, nobody knows. It's just me and Jerry. And Jerry's on the phone talking me out of the situation I'm in, and I'm in the basement underneath my pool table with a blanket. He comes down, he talks to me. Finally, I let him in because he said, Stacy, I'm not leaving here. He was there at the front door talking to me, banging on the door, ringing the doorbell for 2 hours till I finally let him in. I let him in, and he's talking to me, and me being a hostage negotiator myself, I knew the tricks, I knew the terminology, and I get mad, and I said, man, quit using that BS on me. I know what you're doing. Quit using that BS on me. And finally, after a long story short, he takes me, he grabs me, and this is like the true part of my one of my fraternity. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and our motto is friendship is essential to the soul, and this is true friendship right here. This man grabs me, embraces me, carries me up, throws my butt in the shower. I'm washing up. We go over my medication, my vitamins, and we empty them out. He looks at the medication, the bottles. He asks, what was this for? I says, my blood pressure. They just prescribed me. He looks it up on drug.com, and it was antipsychotic medication that they had prescribed me. And I'm looking through my records and my documents, and it shows nothing that, and they prescribed me antipsychotic medication. So, yeah.
So, from this whole ordeal, from start to finish, which seems like it was, I mean, obviously very traumatic and quick in the relative sense of the term, what do you feel like was your biggest takeaway for yourself? Like, what was the biggest lesson that you learned from this traumatic event in your life?
The biggest lesson I learned was, for me, it's not about me. It's not a why me. Because I used to, when I first wrote the lecture and I first wrote the speech, because there's a speech to this and there's a curriculum to this for individuals, and it teaches you how to deal with stress. And there's a method that I invented called the Dr. Dre method, and it spells out Dr. Dre, like de-escalation, reboot. I got a lecture that I spoke about and that I still speak about. It's called Tech Lives Matter, Hands Up, Don't Reboot. And it taught me how to, I hate to brag, but it taught me how to cure myself. It taught me how to wean myself off medication. It taught me how to slowly wean myself off medication, how to reinvent myself, how to want to live life again. And it also got me closer with God, because for 2 years I was cursing God. Every stop, for some reason, it was like and it's real weird. And I think I look into it from a therapist aspect, but it was every time I was at a stop sign or a stoplight, and I would look at him, and I would look up at the sky and say, "Why'd you do this to me, man? Why'd you do this to me?" And I just scream at the top of my lungs for a year and a half. And then I was telling somebody the other day, it was like 4 months ago, I just woke up and I just had tears in my eyes, and the tears were just running down my face, and it wouldn't stop. And I got on my knees and I thanked God, and I prayed to him. I said, "Please forgive me. I didn't mean what I was saying to you." And I realized all along that, it's like that footstep thing that you see in people's houses, that footstep sonnet or poem. He was there all along, because guess what? I'm still here. That bullet didn't go through my brain. I didn't squeeze that trigger. So I was still here. It just took me to see that. So it gave me a better relationship with God. It gave me a better relationship with my faith. And also, like it did, it's just this, I was meant to do this. Budapest, Hungary put me on the map, and I was meant to speak, so.
Yeah, I love that. So I want you to talk directly to the people listening live and those listening on replay. Somebody that might be in a situation similar to yours, where whether it's a mental health issue that's causing them to feel like they are outside of their mind, like you said, or maybe it's just something that's happening in their life that's so traumatic that they're outside their mind, that they don't feel like themselves, they feel lost. What kind of encouragement or advice can you give that person?
First of all, and two things, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Amy. Two things I won't give advice on is marriages, because I was terrible at that, and child rearing, because I was the worst father. I still believe I'm not a good father. But one thing I will give advice on is mental health, and how to reconstruct yourself and how to reinvent yourself. First of all, when you try to ask your therapist, because everybody's so quick, and I don't want to just single out Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the psychiatric community, but everybody is so quick to medicate individuals. But think about this: when you have a situation, and there's a child, and you take that child to see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist gives that child medication, and you and your child leave that office, and your child is weighing 80 pounds, and 6 months later you come back for a refill and a revisit, and your child now is 210 pounds, and you give that child the same dosage, then there has to be a word, and what I use is pill popper or pill pushers, because you have to come out. You can't be politically correct when it comes to the mental health of your child or the mental health of your loved one, because sanity is something that's hard to gain. Insanity is something that's hard to shake. And I think that, look at those counselors and those therapists, and if they cut you off when you talk, go, be out. Don't see them no more. If they tell you what to say, like my first psychiatrist, I don't cuss, but Malcolm X once says sometimes a man cusses or uses curse words because he can't think of anything else to formulate in his mind to say. I was so frustrated and angry and ashamed and embarrassed that I said a curse word, and she corrected me. And that's one thing, and as a hostage negotiator, we taught to never correct somebody on their verbiage. That shows that you think you're superior to them, and individuals that make you feel, especially therapists out there, that make you feel that, okay, hurry up and say what you got to say, John or Susie, because I have Abraham in the next room and he's coming in. If you get those feelings, be out, go. If you got, I know Dr. Neubauer is in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but he's helped me and gave me resources to look up other individuals with his caliber and his sense of caring and commitment. And he's a man of God too. And he just sits there and listens to me. And when I leave Dr. Neubauer's office, I haven't seen him in a long time, but when I do, when I see him, I'm leaving thinking I'm Rocky. I'm thinking I can run 10,000 miles. I'm thinking I can take on Superman. I'm thinking I can conquer the world, because he just sits there and listens.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So for those people who are, first of all, interested in your book, interested in speaking, how do they get in contact with you to get more information about you? Or just, I always encourage my listeners, just reach out to people, whether it be a comment on Facebook or a message or an email, to let to ask questions, to connect, to say, hey, I'm going through the same thing. So how do we get in contact?
And contact me on Facebook. Everything is Crux Conception. Crux Conception. CONCEPTION. It's my Twitter name. It's my LinkedIn. It's my Facebook. It's my Instagram, my GitHub. And we don't have to talk about mental health. We can talk about criminal profiling. We can talk about profiling social media accounts. We can do that. And the book will be out hopefully late November, because I wanted to have Dr. Crux Conception PhD. I want to have my PhD and have that put on the title of the book before it comes out, just for self gratification purposes only. But I'm like Dr. Dre. Remember everybody was waiting for the next Dr. Dre to album come out, and he's still working on it. I know I'm going to go over this book over and over and over again with a fine tooth comb, and because I want it to be perfect. I want to answer every question for the reader. So I love leaving the stones unturned. And I mean, it's dark, it's gritty. There's things about me, my marriage, lifestyle, that are just, like I said, I hope I get pats on the back, but it may be some targets on my back, because I am not exposing, but I am talking about a lot of things in there which affected me in life. My dealings with the city of Fort Wayne, my dealings with the police department, attorneys, my wife, and how I used the Dr. Dre method to just not let it break me down.
Yeah.
And just keep on going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Stacey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your story, your vulnerability, your courage. And for those of you who who can identify with some things that Stacey has gone through, reach out, connect, follow him, keep in contact with him, and be on the lookout for his book, because I know that, Stacey, I know that your story is going to impact and is currently impacting so many people. So I appreciate you having the courage to come on today and share your story. To the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you tune in next week. We always have 2 people per week that we profile. Now you got me saying profiling. In case we have 2 people that we feature in their stories. So have a wonderful weekend and share your story with